getting out and talking to other folks in environments where you can be candid and where you're not worried about your ego being stroked on the internet or on Facebook, where you can just sort of lay yourself bare in an environment where other people do the same. It's indescribable how helpful that is.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris, once again, hanging out with you in the podcast chair. Thank you for joining me. Got a great interview coming up. Want to pause to remind you that we are sponsored by 3 great companies. One of them, of course, is Working RE magazine. Working RE is where I go to find out what's going on in my business, in my appraisal career. You should be as well. WorkingRE.com. Working RE is in realestate.com. Datamaster saving me about 40 minutes per report. It will save you time. It will save you money. Check them out. Datamasterusa.com. Datamasterusa.com. And finally, Alamode. Alamode, of course, is the software that leads the industry. And there's a reason, folks. Check them out. Go to alamode.com. That's ALAMODE or 800 Alamode. Well, there's only been a handful of people that I've had on the program more than once, and a very, very, very short list that have been on the program more than twice. I want to reintroduce you to a great friend of mine, an individual that has been on a couple of times. His name is Rob Bodkin, and he comes to us from the Seattle area. Rob, welcome back to the program, friend.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dustin. Glad to be here.
I want to catch the listeners up a little bit. We had you back originally, episode number 59, believe it or not. We're tenfold that now. But episode 59, October of 2015, seems unreal, especially in the COVID times that we live in. It seems like the time has just kind of slowed down, but 2015 was a long time ago. And tell me a little bit about where you were at on the first episode that you were on the Appraiser Coach podcast.
I was the happiest staff appraiser in America. And I had been working for U.S. Bank for, at that point, about 7 years, I think. Mm-hmm. And I was super happy.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. I would encourage appraisers who are interested in that lifestyle, meaning working for a corporation, working for, a biweekly salary, benefits, I assume were included in that and what have you, to go back and listen to episode number 59, because, even though you're in a different place now, Rob, back then, I mean, when you say you're not being sarcastic, you really were the happiest staff appraiser in the world, right?
I honestly, except for a little bit around the compensated to pay, mm-hmm. which wasn't terrible, Sure. I honestly, I couldn't have been happier. It was great. Yeah, it was really great. Yeah.
Well, Red Sky's a good company, and I do some work for them as well. But we had you on, about, I don't know, what was it, like 9 months later in July?
Yeah, July,
yeah. So, you went from the happiest staff appraiser to episode number 137, again, July 2016, where you had moved away from Red Sky as a staff appraiser. I know you still do work for them, but tell me a little bit, for those that have not listened to that episode, why the change?
Fundamentally, it was math. We're supposed to be good at math. I had gone to North Carolina to do my last SRA class with a good friend from here in Seattle, Tom, and we had been talking, and I just saw what he and his partner were doing in their business, and the hours they were investing for the return, compensation wise, and I thought, I knew a number of people who were in that same boat who were doing pretty well here locally, and I'd always had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak in me. And so it just felt like a good time to get back into it. And I had been so disconnected from the fee world, so I didn't know what the availability of work was like. I didn't know what the fees were like. I'd been pretty insulated from that at the bank. And when I got a clearer picture of that, it became a pretty easy choice.
Okay. So just to be clear for the listeners, take us back October 2015. You're a staff appraiser for U.S. Bank. You're happy, mm-hmm. right? No need to change. Yeah, thrilled. Okay. Take us then, of course, to July of 2016. You have now gone out on your own. You're fairly new as a fee appraiser, independent fee appraiser. You're happy, right?
Yeah, very, very.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I left the bank in the end of January of 2016. Yep.
Okay. So we are in the fourth quarter now of 2020 as we record this. Talk to me about, you've kind of moved again, right? I mean, you're still an independent fee appraiser, but catch us up, because it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm still obviously very independent. I do work for Red Sky, but when I left the bank, I basically, I'd been working out of the house. So there wasn't a whole lot different. I was still working out of the house, one-man shop, doing everything in the appraisal process, soup to nuts, no assistants, no VA, no anything, just now in the fee world. And over the summer and fall of 2016, I got into coaching, meaning being coached, and I joined the mastermind group. And when I went to my first mastermind group, I was the only person that didn't have an assistant or help. I was the only person who was still typing every part of my report. I was literally I was the freshman with the glazed over eyes. I was like, oh my God.
And the swirly. Remember the swirly we gave you?
Exactly. The hazing was atrocious. And so since then, and so at the end of that year, I hired an assistant who had some previous appraisal experience, and he became a trainee. And then we hired a office manager, or someone to work the phones and do the scheduling and all that. And that's effectively where I'm at now. I have that young man moved on to something outside of appraising, but the woman who I hired as the office manager is now a trainee, literally started last week on her first one with me. And we have a young man who does the office stuff, scheduling and bidding and orders and all that stuff. And then I have a part-time data entry person.
I don't want to, as you say, math doesn't lie. The numbers are the numbers. I don't want to get into to specific numbers, but give us a general sense of where you were as a staff appraiser, where you were last time we spoke as a single man entity, and where you are now regarding. And the reason I'm asking the question, Rob, is not to get too personal, but
sure.
Many of my listeners, I think for many years, have listened to me talk about a different model, if you will, and nothing but respect for staff appraisers out there. It is a viable business. It is a viable way of doing things for those who like the quote unquote security of the biweekly paycheck and the benefits that might come working for a big corporation. That works for a lot of people. But there's a lot of appraisers, I would say about 95% of independent fee appraisers, who really are in a similar situation to where you were in 2016, meaning you are basically a solo appraiser. There's a few out there that have got part-time, maybe even a full-time assistant, but maybe just one other person helping them and working with them. What causes a person to go from staff to solo to more of a business owner?
Besides the perspective of freedom, and had pretty good freedom at the bank, but you don't have any freedom like you have when you own your own business. Mm-hmm. And so that was important, but honestly, it was the dollars and cents. And working at the bank, working 50-ish hours a week, maybe a touch more because you could be paid more for production. It was just over 6 figures at the bank. Just over that line. But you worked a lot of hours, more hours than I work now for sure.
Okay.
And that first year independent by myself, really no other change except the name on my business card. I was half again better. So almost 50% increase. And then
but let's talk time, because that's meaningful here. So you're
same amount of time.
Okay.
Same amount of time. Yeah, probably 50, 60 hours for sure, at least one day a weekend. Full time. Mm-hmm. That's 50, 60 hours is probably more than full time for most people. But that's,
and I want to pause there. I don't want to derail you. I don't want to get off from the question at hand, because the next part that you're going to answer is going from solo appraiser to entrepreneur. But I want to emphasize a couple of things. So as a solo entrepreneur, as a solo independent fee appraiser, you're now doing your own marketing. You're now reaching out, making connections. You now are in charge of some things that you weren't necessarily doing before at the bank. You've lost that ability to have, I don't know what, and we don't need to talk specific benefits of US Bank, but I know some staff appraisers that work for US Bank, and they're very happy. It's a great place to work. But now you've got some changes. But you say you had no regrets moving into that direction. And the reason I want to emphasize that is there's many appraisers who might be in the staff section thinking about going independent, thinking, well, yeah, but do I really want to do all that other stuff that comes with that decision?
Yeah, there was enough work here locally that the marketing wasn't a big deal, and certainly getting on the AMC list was no big deal. I mean, there was a little bit of work involved in that, but it was pretty quick and pretty easy. And the vast majority of my work now is either VA or local direct lenders. I still do work for Red Sky and a couple other AMCs, but they're not the lion's share of what we do.
Mhm.
But the marketing and setting up my own health insurance and all those things, there was some hassle involved, but the rewards were so much. It was worth it for sure.
Okay, so take us then from July 2016. You're solo, no assistants, no VAs. You're doing everything on your own to where you're at today, Rob.
So effectively, I more than doubled our billing and production, and I work fewer hours. I have, like I said, effectively I have 2 assistants here, someone who does all the scheduling, the bidding, the order, all that stuff. And then I have an assistant who works in my files, does the basic typing, transcribing, county records, cleaning up our importing from Spark and all that stuff. And so our volume went effectively doubled from when I first opened the business as a solo entrepreneur. Did that answer the question?
It did. So yesterday I was doing some coaching with an individual who you happen to know, by the way, but we'll leave his name off, and talking to him a little bit about his business. And one of the topics that came up was growth. And he's in a situation, not quite where you were in July 2016, but he's got 1 assistant. And we were talking about growth, talking about different things and he asked this question, Dustin, I could stay where I'm at right now. I make pretty good money. Yes, I'm working 60, 70 hours a week, but that's pretty standard for appraisers. And then we started talking to him a little bit about my business and my business model and growth. And I had mentioned that we had done $1 million this year gross. And of course the question is, well, yeah, but then you've got payroll and you've got overhead, and yes, gross doesn't equal net. And we talked a little bit about numbers as far as that goes. And his question, and I'm going to put you in the coaching chair, Rob,
Sure.
His question to me, and I'm curious how you would answer this, is, Dustin, that seems like a lot of work to get from where I am now to where you are. I don't know that I want to go through all of that to get to that same level. What would you say to somebody like that?
I would say that at the end of the day, it wasn't that much work, largely because I was fortunate enough to surround myself with a group or groups of appraisers who were all doing the same thing, and we help each other and give each other feedback and bounce ideas off each other. So there was I didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So having that was super helpful. And at the end of the day, what my business feels like is it's not quite totally optimal, but pretty close to the optimal situation for a single appraiser. Having the support, I've been able to off shoulder or hand off probably 90% of the stuff that we do that we don't need to be doing as an appraiser. The $20 an hour stuff, I'm about 90% handed off on that. And so I can focus on, inspecting real estate, pulling my comps, doing doing the analysis and the adjustments and the reconciliations. I do the stuff largely that we're supposed to be doing as an appraiser, and not the stuff that, your admin should be doing. And
we're talking with Rob Bodkin out of Seattle. Rob is an entrepreneur. He's a grower. He's a business owner. Rob, when we get back from the break, I want to talk to you more about what that looks like specifically, what it is that an appraiser needs to set up in order to get from where you were in 2016 to where you are now. I want to pause here and remind you of some three great companies that will help you get there, folks. These are companies that will help you to be more efficient. On the technology side, for example, let's talk Alamode. Alamode is the leader in report writing in the world, folks. There's a reason they are the leader. They continue to give the tools, and they strengthen the ability for the appraiser to do their job efficiently. Folks, if you're with any other system, I beg you to pick up the phone, call them 800-ALAMODE, and ask them why you should switch. Listen to their pitch, listen to what they have to offer, and then ask yourself, is it worth doing? Alamode is where it's at, alamode.com. Again, 800-ALAMODE if you want to call them directly. DataMaster, saving individuals time, saving individuals money. One of the things we talk about, Rob talked about the mastermind, and one of the things we talk about frequently in the mastermind is technology, which will help you to be more efficient. One of those technologies is the ability to import directly from your systems, MLS, tax records, etc., directly into your report. DataMaster will help you to do that. That's why it saves you time. That's why it saves you on your quality. In other words, it increases the quality. You don't fat finger things. You don't have human error because it's directly importing from your systems into the report. DataMaster USA, check them out. Go to datamasterusa.com and find out if they're in your area. If they are, sign up. Check them out. You'll be pleased you did. datamasterusa.com. Finally, we're sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Working RE is, in my inbox on a frequent basis, probably twice a week. I get an email from Working RE, click on it. If it's something I'm interested in, I read it. If it's not, I move on. Working RE, no pressure, but data and information is available to you about your chosen career. It's free. Check them out. Go to workingre.com. Again, it's workingre.com. And welcome back to the program. We're talking once again with a good friend of mine, mastermind member and appraiser out of Seattle, Rob Bodkin. Rob, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Dustin. Glad to be here.
Hey, thanks for taking time. I kind of put out the bat signal on my message board here a couple of weeks ago and asked if individuals would be willing to pop on. And I was pleasantly surprised that you said, I'll do it for a third time. Good for you. Good for you.
No, I'm happy to do it. And so without this sounding strange or whatever, I get to do a job that's so rewarding. It's financially and just all sorts of other ways. It's so rewarding. And a high school dropout going in the Navy, and now to where I'm at now, I'm here because people have been helpful. My father trained me, and other people along the way have always been helpful and generous with their time and their experience. And so I am so happy to be back. And if I can be helpful, then it's a big win for me.
Well, let's talk about that. And I appreciate you saying that, Rob. I love the idea, this attitude of giving back. There's a lot of appraisers out there. I mean, a lot of appraisers out there that are in a similar situation, not necessarily to the first time you were on the program as a staff appraiser, but definitely the second time you were on the program in July 2016, where they are, for lack of a better term, they are technicians. They are appraisers. They are not business owners first and appraisers second. They're definitely appraisers first. And most of them say, yes, I own my own business. But really, when you look at their situation, they own their job. And there is a difference between being there and being where you are now, where you're running a business first and an appraiser second. Help me to talk to individuals that are in that situation, that are looking at your situation saying, okay, well, if Rob can do it, I can do it, but why? Why would I want to go from where I'm at now to where you are now? It is work. It takes systems. It takes putting things in place. Why would I want to do that?
Fundamentally, because it maximizes the return on the investment of your time. I'm 51. I don't want to be a greeter at Walmart when I'm 70. And so in between now and then, I want to be able to, enjoy what I do for a living, but also set myself up strongly for retirement. And we're on track to do just that. The rewards that are possible in our profession, just talking dollars and cents, are pretty good, at least here in our area. And so it just makes sense to maximize the ability to leverage our knowledge and our certification. And the way to do that is to, put systems in place. And the way to do that is to hire help, whether it's local or, offshore. But for us, it's all local. But that's why I did it. My wife teaches preschool at her church, right? And part of the reward of that is apparently in heaven because it's not on the paycheck. And right. She would do it for free, right? Mm-hmm. And that's fine because of what I do. It's not an issue. It's not an issue at all. She doesn't have to go out and work, someplace else or in a secular position. So the return on investment is well worth the investment of time.
All right, I want to take you back. Before the break, you mentioned something that I would be remiss if we didn't focus in on and drill down on a little bit. You said, I've been able to off-shoulder about 90% of what an appraiser typically does. Now, I would assume that some listeners, even though we're going on 600 episodes here, and I've talked about the law of delegation many, many times, some listeners would take a question, they would question that, say, wait a second. You're saying that 90% of the appraisal process, you're off-shouldering to someone else. Are you crazy, Rob? You can't do that.
Well, you sound like my dad, because he basically says the same thing. I've handed off inside the appraisal I don't need to look up and print off what the zoning is. I need to check it to make sure it's correct, but I don't need to research that. I don't need to research the plat map and import that. I just need to review it and make sure it looks, okay, yeah, that's my plat, those sort of things. And so there's a lot of those savings that happen. I use an importer. I use Spark, which is a competitor of DataMaster. And that's incredible savings of time and energy and fat fingering mistakes. I don't need to do any of that stuff. I just need to review it and make sure it's accurate. And that's relatively quick. And building the work file with all of that data, that certainly can be done by an assistant. And then there's all the processes that we spend so much time on that are not inside the appraisal, scanning your work files if you still print like we do to a degree, setting up scheduling, bidding on, how many, we probably turn down as much work as we get for sure. And there's all the bidding opportunities and all that stuff that we spend our time on. And once you train someone on how to do that and they have parameters, that I would use, then, I haven't bid a job in forever unless it's super
Wait,
complicated.
I got it. I've got to drill in there. One of the biggest challenges as a coach, as a mentor to other, especially new mentees, individuals, maybe it's their first or second time coaching with me. I can tell you, Rob, that is the thing that probably I get the biggest pushback. When I mention that you can train people, for example, to do bids, when someone calls or emails and says, hey, we need an appraisal done at 123 Any Street, what's your fee and turn time? Well, there's no way I can turn that over to an assistant, they say.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, you absolutely can. And we cheated when we did it. I have a good local client here, and I have a number of them, but one in particular, and they put out their fees. This is what we will pay you for X, and the add-ons for, acreage or waterfront or views or, whatever. And their fees are really reasonable. And so I use that as my base. And then we sort of, morphed it a little bit to fit what I want to do. They have like this 2-page list of different fees for stuff, and I'm not that detailed. So we add for acreage or for waterfront or whatever. But if you have a base fee for a house, and then you add X for more than 2 acres or X for a view or X for waterfront, somebody trained me and I'm not that smart. So, there's no reason why we can't train another, an assistant to do those things.
But what if they get it wrong, Rob? What if you end up doing a $1,200 appraisal for $600?
Well, the funny thing about that, and same thing with scheduling, fee bidding and scheduling, I must be a softie, because almost without exception, I've never done a job where I thought, oh, we left money on the table. So hopefully none of my clients are listening to this, but it happens way more often than not where I think, wow, Joe got that for this, sweet. Right. And, and same thing with scheduling, having someone else do my scheduling means that they can call and say 9 a.m. on Thursday is our next available. And then they're quiet, where I would say, well, how about morning or afternoon on Thursday? What works best for you? That kind of thing. And yeah, so no, you definitely
can. They're more hard-nosed than you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would, again, be remiss if I didn't circle back and say, well, okay, you say you can train somebody to pull the plat map. You can train somebody let's talk zoning. Zoning's a big deal. You get zoning wrong, and you're possibly going to get a highest and best use wrong. You're possibly going to have a number on that valuation that is going to be way off. So talk to me about that. Rob, I hear this often, and they don't necessarily say it in these words, but when I'm coaching individuals, they basically will say, listen, Dustin, I get what you're saying, law of delegation. I understand economies of time. I understand delegation, but the bottom line is if I don't do it myself, it's not going to get done right. There's going to be mistakes made, and I'm going to be on the hook for that. What would you say to an individual like that?
Well, fundamentally, yes. If there's a mistake that's made on a report that I send out of my office, it's my signature on it. Yeah. So yes, I'm on the hook. That said, the vast majority of the work that I do, and I live in an area north of Seattle, so it's half subdivisions and half acreage trailers and waterfront or whatever. But the vast majority of what I do, I'm appraising a house that's in a subdivision and it's got a zoning of R5 or whatever, just as an example. We go through the highest and best use analysis, but it's pretty quick to be, right? I don't spend an hour figuring out highest and best use in a subdivision, right? So if 95% of the work that I do is that, then there's no reason for me to spend 6 minutes on each one of those, researching, well, when was R5 established and what's the minimum lot size and blah, 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 And so, but on the occasional one where it's not in a subdivision or it backs up to the Piggly Wiggly or, whatever it is, then I take the time to say, okay, what's my zoning? What's my highest and best use here? So I'm still responsible. Absolutely. And it's my responsibility to do that analysis, but it's not reasonable for anyone to say, I have to be doing 100% of all of those processes every time to that same degree, So I get the notion that people are anxious about handing over, certain aspects of the work, but you develop a flow, you develop a way of monitoring it, and you develop the trust with the people that work for you. There was a day when I couldn't spell appraisal, right? I didn't know anything about appraisal, and then somebody trained me, right? And so it's reasonable to say you can take a reasonably smart person who doesn't know anything about appraising and relatively quickly teach them the fundamentals and the basics.
So you've talked about delegation. You've talked briefly about technology that helps you to do more. What else? What does an individual who is looking to move from maybe the solo appraisal office to more of a firm, more of an office, more of a business environment, what other recommendations would you give that individual? Lessons learned over the years, Rob?
I try to automate the things that get me in trouble, specifically paying taxes and payroll and IRA stuff. I have that. We here at the office, we have an IRA and we pay health benefits, but my bookkeeper handles all of that stuff. I never see it. I don't touch it. Joining the Appraisal Institute was key. Most of my great clients I met through associations there. Getting out of my appraiser cave. So whether it's joining an appraisal association, getting coaching through you or some of the other coaches that are, around doing their thing, getting out and talking to other folks in environments where you can be candid and where you're not worried about your ego being stroked on the internet or on Facebook, where you can just sort of lay yourself bare in an environment where other people do the same. It's indescribable how helpful that is.
What would you do different the last couple of years?
I would more quickly hire people to do stuff that I'm not good at. I wouldn't try to do my own incorporation, which is what I did, and all the research and all that. I would get help quicker, and I don't know what else. We've been fortunate. So most I would take the leap earlier, and get help quicker.
Where do you go from here, Rob? What's the future look for Rob Bodkin in the next 2 to 3 years? Next time we have you on the program.
Well, my goal is to have a firm that has maybe no more than 2 other appraisers besides me. I effectively want to create a bit of a co-op where we can share expenses, and I want to shrink my geographical footprint, which is that's the current goal. And I don't know, keep working, finish climbing the volcanoes in Washington.
I was gonna say, what do you do for fun? For fun than you used to have. So what do you do for fun?
Well, for fun, I fish, and for weird fun, I do mountaineering, because anyone who does it knows it's sort of miserable in the moment. But I got into mountain climbing in 2015, and so I've got a couple. There's 5 volcanoes in Washington. I guess there's 5, and so I've got 2 more to climb. And so just hiking, probably hiking and fishing. Nancy wants a boat, so we'll see.
Wait a second. The wife is begging you for a boat, and you're the one standing in the way. That doesn't work.
I know, isn't that weird? I don't know why I'm resistant to that.
I'll tell you why. We'll talk.
I was thinking when I. All right. It's been such a weird year with the pandemic, and it's been our best year ever. And so I'm very careful about where I complain or where I do anything that's even close to bragging, because so many people have been impacted by this in such a profound way. But if we could if we could do what we did this year for the next 10 years, man, I'd be set. Yeah, I wouldn't be on in 12 years because I wouldn't be appraising.
I love it. Rob Bodkin out of Seattle. Thank you, my friend, for joining us once again.
Glad to be here. Thanks a lot. Thanks for everything you do.
Oh, well, likewise, my friend. And I don't say my friend lightly. Rob, truly, you are a great friend. I appreciate you being on and sharing your story.
Thanks.
All right, folks. So we've talked a little bit about the mastermind and some of the help that coaching can be for you. If you're looking to move your appraisal business to the next level, I highly recommend that you reach out to me or my assistant. You can reach my assistant at theappraisercoach.com or myself, the coach, at theappraisercoach.com. Let me tell you what will happen. When you reach out to us, that will trigger a phone call from me to talk and just talk a little bit about your situation. Make sure that coaching is right for you. Talking a little bit about your goals and where you're going with things, and we'll find out if coaching, if masterminding, if the all-star team is what you're needing in your life to move you to the next level. Would love to chat with you. Again, Rob, thank you for joining us, and folks, we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.